Hello and welcome along to the latest episode of this week's Acca podcast, sponsored by Sky Bet. Acca Freeze, Joe, Jimmy and Jake here with you for a reduced slate in the international break, but we still feel like there's plenty to get stuck into and plenty there for us to build you an Acca of at least 10 to 1, maybe a little bigger. Who knows? A little bit of housekeeping first, so we want to hear from you. Get in touch with Sporting Life FC on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Sporting Life Official on Facebook, and please like, follow and comment at this week's Acca on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, this is a podcast for 18s and over. Keep it fun, never bet more than you can afford. Please gamble responsibly. Right, fellas, before we dive into this week, let's start with last. We had no Jake. Me, Jimmy and Tom. So, I mean, Jimmy, you love reading the comments anyway. And we got let down by one team, didn't we?
Chesney. Lost 3-0 at home to Accrington.
Who saw that coming?
Not me.
3-0. 3-zip.
Didn't see that coming. Problem was as well, Chesney did not deserve to win the game. The last goal were a bit dubious. They should have had a free kick in the build-up, but Paul Cook said it afterwards. They was absolutely spanked.
Remember, who were Chesney? We had this last week, didn't we? That Tom had to call you out on it.
Yeah. Who did?
Tom, that you kept saying Chesney, and he was saying, no, you need to say, who are Chesney? Chesterfield.
So, yeah, but
viewers and listeners.
Do you know what I learned after was Paul Cook left Accrington in 2012 for Chesney. Maybe that played a factor. Maybe it played a factor. But someone on the comments actually said, on Accrington, it was a comment from GHW147. He said, on Accrington, saw them at Rushall in the FA Cup 2 weeks ago. What a poor side. That was before the result.
I think that's what Jake saw before he tipped him up in his column to finish in the top half in League Two.
Is there any chance that when he saw them in the FA Cup against lower league opponents that they actually rotated, maybe? Kept a couple of stronger players out, maybe just took the foot off the gas, weren't bothered about getting through. Either way, yeah, Accrington have made it into my latest outright column to finish in the top half.
Comments went wild on last week's episode, by the way.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff around the 12, what time can we start the Acca debate, 12:30s or not. Ray Stevenson said, I agree, leave out 12:30s because you don't want it dead by 2:30. That's exactly what we think, but he wondered if we could include Sunday or 5:30 games, spread it out over the weekend. And he finished with Walsall was my banker last week. I think they drew, didn't they?
They drew
at home to Crewe.
Yeah.
And then someone else completely different outlook. Hibbert9241 said, no respect for people shying away from the early kickoffs. Feels a bit personal. That's tourist punting. Although I do usually have a combined Acca comprising English 3 p.m. kickoffs. I also have Lincoln to win. And I won't be talked out of it. Lincoln drew.
They also drew,
Unlucky.
Yeah, that's...
It's an interesting debate because, like, theoretically, you having a team to win at 12:30 is not... Like, they've still got the same chance of winning that game at 12:30 as they would at 3 p.m.
Yeah, it's
It doesn't really change. It's just the mindset of you want them all to kick off at the same time and end at the same time so you can have that nice 2 hours of, like, joy or despair.
Exactly.
So we're staying 3 p.m. right? Because I've not done any research for 12:30 matches this weekend.
How many
for now? I mean, last week we were really close, weren't we? And there's this might come up later on anyway, but there was a few that didn't even make the discussion that we were chatting about afterwards in the office. Teams that ended up bloody winning. So I mean, we had like 6 selections all round.
One, weren't they?
That were. At one. So, I mean, it's painful, but we are really close at the minute. Don't feel like we need to tear up the strategy. Well, onto this week, because we've already discussed them. Jake has put up Accrington on an article on the website that you can read, a mid-season long-range tips piece on the EFL, and I feel like that's a sensible place to start. I would find it unusual if you're not going to talk about Accrington against Swindon, which is a 3 p.m. game in League Two.
Yeah. I quite like Accrington's chances here. Anyone who's read the article, if you haven't read it, please go and read it. I'm basically talking around the underlying numbers, and Accrington are one of the biggest underperformers in the league so far this season, which basically says that the performances that they've been putting on week to week have deserved more points, and that over the long period of time, so however many games are left, then you should expect some kind of regression. We have started to see a little bit of that. They won 4 of the last 6 league games, so they are already hitting a little bit of form after shocking start, and they've lost only MK Dons in that time. So, who we think are quite a top team. And yes, Swindon, they're still trying to get going under Ian Holloway. They were well beaten by MK Dons last week on his league bow. And
they're still shit.
Yeah, it seems like they're still shit. But yeah, the only, I still think it's a big price. You look 11-8 generally, but when I did my notes last night, they were 6-4 Accrington. So they are getting trimmed, and I wouldn't be surprised if they went off quite a little bit shorter than this. And at home, despite, if you take results out of the question, they have got the ninth best home underlying process in the league, which in theory should be more than enough if they play to that level to beat this Swindon team.
Yeah, no concerns about the price for me, because when I heard you just before we started recording talking about the price, I was thinking, this price must have disappeared completely. So I did notes on this same game yesterday afternoon, and it was 11-8 then. So I think it might have just drifted out to 6-4 momentarily.
Maybe.
Then got back into 11-8. So it stayed steady for most of the week. I really liked your argument about Accrington when I read it on site. And Swindon, I've been banging the drum about how bad Swindon are all season. And I'm not going to stop until they start winning matches. So Swindon, it's now 47 points from the last 52 league matches, 0.9 points per game, 3 different managers in that span. They are not getting better. Won 2 matches this season, third bottom, 2 points off the bottom. 11-8 for our first pick. For me, that just gives us so much wriggle room for trying to build an Acca in an international break. So unless Jimmy's got a hugely fantastic argument that breaks it open, which I'm prepared for, then I'd have it in.
Can I just add, those 2 wins, by the way, came against Newport, a team that we don't think of that highly, and Cheltenham, a team that I think quite a few of us had to be in and around the bottom of the league. So they've not even beaten good sides, and I definitely think Accrington have got more than enough to do them. Go on, Jim.
No complaints. Get them in.
Yeah, that's it. So our first selection for this week's Acca is Accrington to beat Swindon at 11-8. We got one in nice and early. Have we ever had the team that ruined the Acca 1 week as the first pick? We're not reactionary at all, are we? I tell you what, I know what we should put in. That team that fucked us over last week, 3-0, they must be good. There is more method to the madness, I promise. There really is. So if you're just listening now for some reason, skip the first section, then feel like we've made a strong argument. Anyway, Jimmy, you have to take responsibility for putting up Chesterfield last week. It was all your fault. Nobody else agreed with that. Except we all did. Yep. Even Jake that wasn't on the podcast.
That's true.
Believe it. So yeah. I am also going to go with somebody I wanted to go against last weekend. Bristol Rovers, even money, home to Crawley. 2 reasons. I just think the price is big and the opponents are pretty bad. At home, 7 games, is it 4 wins for Rovers? They're pretty good on their own patch, and Crawley have only won 1 away all season. Managerial switch has gone pretty well, but last game, I think, did they draw 2-2? They had 3 shots, 2 on target, so that's not sustainable. Yeah, I just thought Bristol Rovers, even money, get them in.
I don't want this in at all. Sorry, mate. I really don't want this in at all. Bristol Rovers were one of the teams that I was looking at in this outright piece as a potential relegation candidate. But they've got a little bit of a cushion already, and the 4 teams that are down there, I don't think they're going to pick up enough points to cause them problems. But the reason is because they're the worst team in the league, full stop, based on expected goals. They prop up the division based on expected goals data, expected goal difference, expected points. So I would be very wary of trusting Bristol Rovers in any spot, never mind in a home game against a potential underdog in a spot that Crawley quite like. They quite like being the underdogs, going to places, getting results. So yeah, I did initially take a glance at it and thought, it's a big price, 23-20, even money. But digging a bit deeper, I just can't be getting involved. And yeah, they are one of the worst home teams as well. I mean, like Jim said, they picked up results, but they've been very fortunate with those results based on the data. So they would be one team that I would happily swerve and leave alone.
Crawley love being the underdogs. When have they picked up a result as underdogs? What
about Wembley last season?
This isn't at Wembley. This isn't league. When as underdogs have they picked up a result?
The entirety of last season where they were favoured to the
but it's not last season. It's not last season. They've got a different manager. They've lost the spine of the team.
Draw with Huddersfield, not like fairly recently.
Huddersfield were missed a rotten run at the time.
It's just off the top of my head. I'd need to check that.
Any thoughts, Joe?
I don't really like Bristol Rovers. I just think they're just a bit. Yeah, personally, it's not. This isn't one that I'd think is a terrible selection that I'm completely dead set against if we came back round to it. But it's not one that I'd be putting in as number 2.
What?
Personally.
I think it's a terrible selection.
Terrible selection. You just said Crawley liked the underdog mentality. The only
also
away
said
win.
Bristol Rovers are the worst team in the
but
league.
just to pick up on that first, the only away win was on the first away game of the season. They
This is
beat
what
Cambridge.
a long losing run does to people.
No, but
It's like a bad marriage.
no. But I just think that counter arguments might be based a little bit too much on underlying data and not pounds and cents results, because Crawley have only won one away all season. Cambridge 1-0. It was their first away of the season, and Cambridge.
Interesting that you should mention
without
that.
a win for ages.
Winning away at Cambridge, because a few weeks ago, then you put Barnsley up to win away at Shrewsbury based on their long-standing away record, and I said then, I think we just need to wait a couple of weeks. I completely agree with your point about the away form. It was really good. It's basically going back over 2.5 seasons now about Barnsley being consistently the best, if not one of the best away teams in League One. Barnsley were on the telly on Friday against Rotherham, for anybody who watched it, and it was their best performance of the season. They've named pretty much the same team for about a month's worth of matches, save for like one change, which is the first time that's happened under Clark. We exposed Cambridge on this podcast last week for how overblown it had been, that they'd won 5 matches in a row, some of them in an EFL trophy, one against a non-league team in the FA Cup, the others against poor teams in League One, and then they lost 6-1 at Peterborough. Barnsley are 19-20 to win that game on Saturday, and it just looks like it's ripe for a single. Never mind just putting in an Acca for me. So it's kind of, I'm putting it up, but it's very much on the back of just the same argument that Jimmy trotted out, I think 3 weeks ago on the pod. Same thread.
Hell yeah, I've got it down. These were my second ones behind the mighty Rovers. 4th best.
That was your favourite?
3rd best. Yeah.
Oh, but
Fully of pants. Second best away side this season. But it is weird because how many managers have they had since 22-23? It don't make any sense, but they are a brilliant away side. And similar to you, Joe, I had some pro Rotherham angles on Friday, so I watched the game, and bar the first 10 minutes, Barnsley was unbelievably good, like really coming of age performance. And it always seems to happen with the Reds. It's like a cycle, isn't it, Joe? They get a new manager. It takes him 2, maybe 10 weeks, 2 months to work out his best team. He does, and it all starts clicking. Because how long ago was it? He was saying he literally came out and said, "I don't know my best team," but John Russell looks a revelation in midfield. He's getting a run of games. He looks really good. Such a threat from set pieces, and he just seems to have found that balance. I wouldn't be surprised if he brings Humphreys in this weekend because he's getting his match fitness up. He's really impressive from the bench. So yeah, I just think it's just a really nice bet.
The international break element as well. Then Barnsley have lost no one to a call up, that is just a huge edge, isn't it? I can't speak for Cambridge, but they're already rubbish, aren't they? So it don't really matter.
Yeah,
to be honest,
they're not quite as bad as the table would suggest at this moment in time, but I do think this is a value bet on Barnsley. They've been very impressive, especially away from home, as you've said. For whatever reason, they just absolutely cook when they go on the travels. But yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. You look at the overall form of Barnsley and you think, it's not that impressive. 4 wins in the last 8. But then you dig a bit deeper. They played 3 winless games against Stockport, Wickham and Huddersfield. 3 teams that are probably going to be in the top 6 at the end of the season. So, 4 wins across the 5 that haven't been against that kind of opposition is really impressive. And it, like I say, it seems as though they're clicking.
it's in.
It's in.
It's in.
Okay, so that's our second selection for this week's Acca. I'll give us a price update in a second. It is Barnsley to win at Cambridge, which joins our first selection of the week, which is Accrington to beat Swindon. Brings us to a double of already over 3.5 to 1.
Before we move on, make sure you click like and subscribe, and also click on that notification bell to be notified of all of our latest videos. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Okay, where are we going next here? Because I kind of feel like I stole one of Jimmy's selections.
We need to go back to Jim, don't we?
From him here. So do I
Me again?
give him another one, or do I
know.
put one up that I kind of, because I stole his?
Put one up.
Okay.
Put one up.
There's two teams that seem very obvious to put.
This one's really tricky because the price has moved a bit, but it still is. It's the most obvious selection in the entire slate. So top of the table in League Two goes to bottom of the table in League Two. So that is the most obvious pick that you would find anywhere on Saturday. So Port Vale were 10 to 11 to win that game.
I've got them as 10 to 11.
It's just come in a bit now, so the best price you can get is 17 to 20. But personally, I still think that that's a good price. And yeah, I don't want to talk into it too much if you've got it, Jimmy, because I did steal your.
No, you do it.
Steal your selection.
Do it.
Okay.
Tell us about it.
All right. Let me dig out my little notey notes here. So yeah, it's uncomplicated. Darren Moore's side as well are the best away side in League Two. 1-6, drawn 1, lost 2. Morecambe are the worst home team in League Two. 1-0, drawn 3, lost 4. Morecambe's last 2 home matches were against 2 promotion chasers, MK Dons and Chesterfield, conceded 8 goals across those 2 games.
If I can jump in there real quick, they've actually played 7 of the 9 experienced boys, big boys, promotion favourites. 0 wins, 1 point from 21, -9 goal difference.
It's
Carry
got
on.
everything that you would expect
Exactly.
for an Acca pick, really. So that's why I've got minimal notes here, and I'm just trying to pad it out.
Yeah, well,
You can't
To be
tell.
honest.
the thing is, like, aside from Morecambe's rotten record, full stop, the crap against the biggest and bookies' favourites teams for promotion, and then you look at even the result when they beat Harrogate, that was the smashiest of smashy grab. You just got it up now, haven't you?
Yeah,
Look at the state of that.
The stats for that game: Harrogate had 21 shots to Morecambe's 11. They had 2.34 xG to Morecambe's 0.6, and Morecambe scored a 96th minute winner. So yeah, Morecambe don't look like they're very good. The underlying data paints the exact same picture as the table. I think this one goes in as well.
Hell yeah. And the
That
data
was easy, wasn't it?
The data lines up with the facts in this one, doesn't it?
It
'Cause I think
does.
they've got almost.
You don't have to
exact-
pick a side.
You don't have to, no. Yeah, and I'm just saying, like, they are exactly where they should be.
Exactly.
Scumbags.
Vale are performing like a top 3 team, so it's
And
not like they're in a false
I
position.
just think it's the blip that maybe they've lost a few, if you look at the Cup and the League in a row, and maybe that's why we're getting such a good price. Maybe.
And probably to do with the recency of the defeat to Gillingham last week, but they weren't that bad against Gillingham.
No.
They probably didn't deserve to win the game, but it was more of a 0-0 looking at the stats. So yeah, I think this is a good spot for Port Vale to bounce back.
Here we go. In and out, chaps. So the third pick for this week's Acca is Port Vale to win at Morecambe. So that treble, wherever you back it, that's coming in between 6 and 7.5 to 1 already. I didn't expect, fellas, international break, that we would race through to 3 selections this quickly. So let's see if we can complete this Acca. All end happy, and definitely, I'm confident.
Yeah.
Nail a winner.
Yeah.
But I think the last winner was in international break, actually.
I think it was.
So maybe it's just that
It was 3 as well.
us 2 and Gab, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It gives the mind a bit less fog, doesn't it, when there's not as much choice. Okay, Jake.
Yeah.
You mentioned just in the little break there that you've got a couple of selections you'd like. So
Yeah. Well, I've got 3 selections, and I'm surprised none of them have been said yet. The shortest price one is Gateshead to beat Aldershot, which is a 1-2 shot. This looks like a cornerstone of an Acca material. Gateshead have won 7 of 8 at home. The only defeat came against Forest Green, who we know are absolutely probably better than National League level. Aldershot have lost 4 of 8 away, and they've not even played a team anywhere near the top 7 yet. So Gateshead are, I think, 5th or 6th. Looks like a big mismatch. And at 1-2,
I like the elevator pitch here if you've got 3. So Gateshead, I looked at it. Just too much uncertainty because they changed manager 3 weeks ago. So this is only going to be like his third or fourth game in charge. So I'd say at that short of price, National League team, new manager.
And just a quick one on the whole 1 to 2.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of logic to it, but it feels like in the lower leagues we're getting chinned by the bankers. It happened last week with Chelsea. And it's hard to explain, but it feels like there's more risk with a banker than taking a chunkier even money. You know, at the minute, like it feels like. Is there any? Do you know? I
totally agree.
I'm not wording it very well.
If it's really short, I feel like you got to feel so good about it, like almost like you know a bit more. When it's short, it's a lot easier to disregard quickly if it's a very short price, isn't it? Once we get to the even money and above, or even just close to the even money line, you can be like, I'm liking this. But two more.
So they're both in League Two. MK Dons to beat Cheltenham. 4-5 is what is showing up on Oddschecker at the moment. 7-10 in places. MK Dons they're flying at the moment. They've clearly hit a bit of a stride under Lindsay. 6th on XG, been the 4th best team on XG over the last 8 matches. So that recent form stacks up well. 4 straight wins in League Two for them as well. And they are 1-2 drawn 1 lost 1 at home under Lindsay, with that only defeat coming against Port Vale. Cheltenham 18th on the XG table, 16th in the actual table. They're unbeaten in 4, but all matches have come against teams that probably aren't going to be in and around the top 7. Colchester, Bradford, Carlisle and Bromley. The latter, 3 of those 4 are going to be near the bottom of the table. So I think this is a chunky price. Similar to what happened last week when we put MK up against Swindon. I think that there's just a massive gulf here. And then the other one was Doncaster at home to Salford. Salford not very good, Doncaster very good. Similar kind of arguments in terms of the data for both home teams, really.
The MK Dons I love, and Lindsay's made an unbelievable start, but there was just something I noticed about Cheltenham. They actually switched from a back 3/5 to a back 4 8 games ago, and since then they've won 4, drawn 2. They've only lost 2, if you're quick at maths. And it was just...
What was the schedule like over those games?
It was enough to just cast a little bit of doubt in my mind. I'm just getting the schedule up as you talk. So this is the league schedule. They're actually 4 unbeaten, and they have played some big hitters. You've got Bradford in there.
Barrow aren't very good.
Yeah, I've got the same mark against the MK Dons Cheltenham game. The price being short, and while I like MK Dons, they have done us quite a lot of times. And Cheltenham, they've not lost since the 12th of October.
Yep.
Won 5, drawn 2 all competitions. They won 3-1 at Rotherham in the FA Cup as well. And it just feels like for me with Cheltenham that Michael Flynn is going to be a manager that always underperforms on the data, just because of the way that his teams play. But he's a really good fit for that football club, that they're going to absorb chances, play direct. That is just the way that it's going to be. They're not going to necessarily look very good on the spreadsheets, but he's definitely the type of manager that will fit them nicely. And it's taken a bit of time the start of the season. It might all catch up to look a bit better in terms of the stats later in the year. They feel like the sort of team that MK Dons will hate to play. They're just going to set up to frustrate, try and be nasty, direct. They're not going to go there to play.
And I looked at, on the other side of that, I looked at just before we come down here, MK Dons, I've not watched them every week. I barely even watched them since Lindsay come in, but I looked at Sporting Life website, because we have XG data on there. I obviously use that. And statistically, when they go down and they rack up these high, when they rack up high XGs, obviously when they go down first in the game, Grimsby, Harrogate, Swindon, batter them, steamroll them after they go a goal down. But do you know when games are on a knife edge? Tranmere, they drew, barely anything in it. Port Vale, they lost, they got battered on the XG. Morecambe, they won, they went a goal up, 2 up, and there was nothing in between them in terms of chances. Accrington, they won, but they actually lost the XG battle comfortably in that as well. And it's brilliant because it ties into real life experience, what you've said about Cheltenham. You know what? You taught me into probably getting Cheltenham on side in my column, but I think there's enough to get against MK Dons here. I wouldn't be having them. But Donny, I didn't look at this game. I've got bad experience with Salford, but is there any logic to...
Well, there's always logic, yeah.
Is there any actual logic here?
Doncaster are the best team in League One, pretty simply. They continue to be very impressive. Sorry, League Two. I've actually written... Oh, no. I put best team in the league on XG, so I've read that wrong. 4 wins in the last 7, 1 defeat and 2 draws came against side currently
Good save, that.
7. Thanks. Crewe and Notts County are the teams that they failed to beat. Salford, the opposite. They are about 5th bottom on the XG table. 1 win in 7 away games. Only 1 defeat, which is a little bit of a question mark, but they haven't faced an away day as tough as this. The price has tightened a little bit from 3 to 4 into 7 to 10, but the way in which Doncaster have played at home for the last 18 months, really,
Yeah.
I think this is looking like a good bet.
So Donny are playing really good underlying data-wise, but a lot of their games seem to be fine margin recently. And I'm just looking now. Joe Ironside, what, did he almost finish top goal scorer in League 2 last season? He's only got 2 this season. One of them came against Notts County at the weekend. He's not starting tons of games. They've got Billy Sharp, Molyneux as well. I don't know how fine margin Donny are, if that puts a bit of doubt in your mind, Joe.
So I've got 2 picks, and on my list of others, these are on it. So Chesterfield at Harrogate, 4 to 5. Chesterfield strong away, 1-4 drawn, 1 lost 2. Can we trust them at that price? I put all these in the same bucket. Doncaster to beat Salford. Donny have failed to win half the home games, so 1-4 drawn 2, lost 2, and Salford have drawn 5 of their 7 away. That's what did us last time. So we put them in to lose to Crewe, I think. Drew 1-1. And MK Dons to beat Cheltenham, and the reasons that we've already gone through, it just feels like one of those matches. So of those, to be honest, Chesterfield is probably what I feel most comfortable with, but Doncaster's not far behind. MK Dons just feels really tricky to me. The other 2 that I have are like rogue selections that
I want to hear these.
I'd have to go into real description of. So
Crawley to beat Bristol Rovers.
Roath Rovers to beat Morton.
Is that
17 to 20 in Scottish Championship.
someone was calling that we dip into the Scottish divisions? More.
And then
Roath Ravers.
the other one is Forest Green to beat York at 7 to 5, which is a 5:30 game in the National League.
Why it's rogue.
So they're the 2. So
2 in the National League.
I've got
whichever one I'm allowed to pitch first, I'll pitch.
Roath Ravers.
Roath Ravers.
That's what they call them on Gillette, innit?
So, Roath Rovers, the reason why I've been following them a lot this season is because
You've been following them a lot?
Yeah, they appointed Neil Collins as manager, who got
right.
sacked by Barnsley with a game to go in League One last season, really harshly treated. They've won 3, drawn 2 at home since he took over. It's really taken things on really well for them. They're playing a team that are directly beneath them in the league, a totally different situation. They're on a winless run of 6 matches. Wraith have beaten the runaway leaders in the Championship, Falkirk, and then they had a big game, their last home game, at home to Ayr, who were managed by Scott Brown, wiped the floor with them 2-0, scored an amazing goal that was a viral clip, one-touch football to score the second goal. So he's completely overhauled them in the space of 2 or 3 months. So then it's not a matchup of 7th against 8th. It's a team that ought to be towards the top of the table against 8th place. So because of the fact that I've been following how they've been getting on this season, it's kind of presented itself as a price that's more towards the even money line. And Forest Green, I've been putting them up every week, haven't I? And the Forest Green one is really interesting, that because they had problems with their pitch at the start of the season, then they've played 6 home matches and 11 away matches in the National League this year. So the reason why they're not miles clear at the top of the league and York are just slightly ahead by a point is because of that mismatch. They've won every game at home this season except one, where they were 2-0 up against Wealdstone, conceded in injury time at the first half and then conceded in injury time at the end of the second half to draw 2-2. So it's a massive outlier, because if they were miles clear at the top, they wouldn't be 7 to 5 to beat York. The odds would be different. So it just feels like for different reasons, there's 2 that have jumped out.
It's an interesting point about the Forest Green mismatching balance of fixtures. Yeah. I was distracted then because I was just looking at...
We do need to decide.
Greenock Morton's away
told
form.
off by our producers in particular for ruminating over our final selection.
Oh, sorry, we're trying to pick a winner here. We're on a bit of a drought, if you hadn't noticed.
They don't understand the agony that this has. We hadn't slept for 6 months, weeks.
I know, and we're all actually, we always put money on it, so it is important. So sorry if it doesn't meet YouTube trimming times. This is important. Greenock are terrible away from home, though. Is it Greenock? Greenock Morton?
If you want to go by the full name, yeah.
Greenock Morton. Yeah, they're pretty bad away from home. Forest Green, I'd be reluctant just because it is still a top of the table clash. Yeah, it would be nice to all go to Forest Green, to go to the Forest Green game with hanging on that. It feels like there'd be more pressure on the result. The top of the table clash in front of the telly, just a bit icky. Feels like we're going towards Scottish Championship, innit? But I don't know anything about the game, so it's not like I can say.
I don't know anything.
This is like when TC puts up, used to put up the National League when no one was following it, though. You kind of just have to put it in. I have to take all the pressure.
Yeah, there is. I did have one more in the National League. It's my only other game. Solihull Moors, 9th. They go to Ebbsfleet, rock bottom, 3 points below Boston. Who Boston, by the way, got up on a wing and a prayer. They won the penalty shootout in the playoffs twice. Got up completely unexpected. Ebbsfleet are worse than them. They've only won one game all season. They play Solihull Moors, who are even money. Similar to the sort of Port Vale-ish shout, but like I say, I don't really know. I don't follow either team, so it's another one of them. I'm sort of leaning towards the Scottish side. Your second club, Neil Collins.
If we put Wraith in, then it would take us to a fourfold of Sky Bet are only giving us 11-1 at the moment, but I think we could maybe get them up to 13 or 14-1 because that's what a fair few other bookies are doing. And I mean, you sponsor this podcast, guys, so we're going to ask for the boost that you can get at 12 p.m. on a Friday on the Sporting Life website. It wouldn't be dissimilar if we put in another one of the ones that are towards even money. We're looking at 13-1, hopefully, for a fourfold. But I am aware that I would be taking all of the pressure.
Serious risk here.
If this didn't come off.
Do you believe in it?
100%. I'll probably be putting it up on site myself as well.
How strong are you on this one? 100%. What price are they? As a single? Is it evens, did you say?
17-20 it is.
But I'm just going to feed off your confidence. If you're really confident, I'm happy to second it. I'm happy to get them in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's
you, Jake.
Yeah, happy to get them in, because if that's the only one that lets us down, we can just point the finger.
perfect scenario, isn't it?
Terrible.
Right. Final selection.
What league are they in? Championship, Scottish Champ.
This week's Acca
Roath Rovers.
is Roath Rovers to beat Morton at 17-20. So that brings us to a fourfold of Accrington to beat Swindon, Barnsley to beat Cambridge, Port Vale to beat Morecambe. Those last two are away matches, and Roath Rovers to beat Morton. Right, thanks for listening. Don't forget to go to sportinglife.com at 12 p.m. on Friday for an enhanced link of that fourfold. Gone all over the place, haven't we? Scottish Championship. Let's see if that lets us down. And then please send your comments and abuse my way if it does. And the praise if it gets us over the line. We want to hear from you guys as well. So get in touch. It's Sporting Life FC on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Sporting Life Official on Facebook. Like, follow, subscribe, comment at this week's Acca on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts as well. Remember, this podcast is for 18s and over. Keep it fun. Never bet more than you can afford. Please gamble responsibly, and we'll be back same time next week for the return of a more enhanced slate. See you next week.